Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. Today I have with me Maggie Gardener. Maggie is the owner of the Blissful Canary yoga studio on Brisbane's south side, sharing a beautiful, inclusive space for people to reintroduce themselves to their own bodies. Maggie also has a background in Toastmasters leadership, was a part of the Aussie Ambassador program, has worked in childcare as a workplace trainer for International SOS, a chef, life insurance underwriter, carer, and worked in incident management and domestic repatriation incidents as part of a statewide motoring body. So there is a huge range of experience there that Maggie brings to our conversation today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to have you here. So I wanted to start with, because of there is that such vast range, I imagine, and just looking at all the different industries that you've worked in and had experience in, I imagine there are all different kinds of communication required within the roles that you've experienced. And I know that you shared some of that with me as well. So which one do you feel like was the most challenging for you? And why was that so?
I think the older you get, the wiser you get. But in all honesty, communication within the corporate sector has always been the most challenging. And that's because whilst it's changing, corporates, I think, are still, not all of them, that's a grand generalised statement there, but they get stuck in that you're just a number, not a person mentality. And I am when you communicate with somebody, you need to listen to understand and recognise the humanity that is sitting right in front of you. And a lot of corporates don't do that. So that's probably the biggest challenge that I've had. And one of the reasons I may have moved from a couple of corporates until I found one that aligned with my values.
Yeah, I can definitely recognize the importance of finding one that does align with your values as well, because it makes such a huge difference in how open you feel about being able to communicate what it is that you need, or with the team, or using that language of the values as well, right?
Exactly. And it means you can be completely honest when you do communicate, because there's nothing that is a personal attack. There's nothing that is said that is designed to denigrate or make you feel less than. When you're working in an organisation that have the same values, you do exactly as you say. You use the same language. You know that any type of feedback that is given to you is from a place of trying to improve your interactions and improve how you do your job, make things easier for you rather than making things more difficult. And recognising particularly that people are people. Work is not the be-all and end-all of our lives, and in fact it shouldn't be, and it is a means to an end. And having a corporation that recognises that your life outside of work is just as important means that the communication then becomes really personal.
Yeah. Do you feel like that has made a difference in how you feel as far as your overall well-being?
Absolutely, because you feel seen, you feel heard. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, no matter what field you work in, is that when you communicate with people, you need to listen to understand what they're saying, not listen to respond. I think if you do listen to respond, you're not actively listening to them anyway, but to understand the person and what they're trying to say to you. And it makes it a lot easier to do that when you have those values aligned. And for me personally, it's meant that I can be really honest about my own personal journey with the workplace I'm currently at as well, and feel supported. And that's huge, because it means that you remove a layer of stress from things that people are going through. And it means that you have this open transaction with someone who, in all honesty, still has a business to run. They still have money to make. They still have people to look after. But you feel like an individual. You feel like you are a valued person in the organisation. And that's such a massive, massive plus.
And I find also that kind of environment, whether it's a workplace environment or a home environment or a whatever environment, I feel like that kind of environment makes you want to show up more and
absolutely
be more and do more. It's like you're more proactive in how you show up as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it even on a personal level, when you have a circle of friends who actively ask you how you're going and actually listen to you. It's not just, you know, the off the cuff blasé, how are you going? I don't care about the response. But when you have people who actively are asking you those sort of questions and listening to your response and showing up for you, translate that into a corporate environment. And from a, you know, I've been in a manager's position, but from a managerial position, you have staff who are loyal, who will do anything for the company because they feel seen, because they feel like they're a part of something, that they belong to something that matters. So it makes a really big difference in people's lives.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that as well. Is there, across the industries that you have worked in, because you've gone from like childcare to chefing, and I feel like that's probably the biggest polar opposites out of them all. But like, is there a common theme you've found across those industries in understanding how to better relate to and communicate with others? Like when you think about people's needs or that kind of element?
I think it's a really interesting, I hadn't actually really thought about the differences in the industries that I've been in, ever, really. I think one of the reasons I left chefing is because communication in the culinary hospitality world is almost non-existent. It's a very almost military type of communication. And I think the commonality that I have across every other field that I've ever been in has been, there's been an element of helping somebody, that the role that I've played has played a role in somebody else's life to help them do something better. So I think even if you compare, take the chefing out of it, because the chefing, to be honest, I've had a knife thrown at my head as a form of communication because I had the audacity to put some cinnamon on a piece of pumpkin for a lunch. So it was one of the things that I thought it was creative and fun and something that, you know, I've always loved cooking. So I thought that would be a great fit for me, and it just wasn't, because the communication wasn't there. The creativity was there, but you know, when you look at childcare, it's communicating with the parents, it's communicating with the staff in the centre for the betterment of the child. There's always that element of helping somebody. So the commonality, I think, across it is listening to understand, listening with empathy, and understanding that there's so much more going on in people's lives than you see on the surface, and that this face that you see every single day with the people that you interact with is a sliver of what's actually going on. And I think in all situations, whether it's a corporate, whether it's a childcare centre, whether you're speaking to a customer, is remembering that that really is the veneer, and most people don't drop it, whatever is going on in their lives. And you'll find that, I think it's the times when you have somebody who's exploding at you, that they're at the end of their rope, they're at the end of their tether, and that's when those things leak through. So I think everything, the commonality is jobs and communication where you have to listen with empathy and listen to understand, so that you can provide a service and provide something that makes people feel like they've been seen and heard, and that they don't have to worry about what's happening that day because you've taken care of it.
Yeah, and I can imagine that would definitely show up in like childcare. Like you can't show up any other way with children, because they'll call that shit out.
Oh, they will.
Because they're so good. Actually, I feel like we can all learn a little bit from like kids in that way. Like they will be so honest, but like they just
don't they? Kids do not bullshit you. I have never met a child yet, from it matters not what age, who is not 100% honest with you, and without guile. I mean, they can hurt you, but they don't mean to, usually. It's only once they get older and they understand that their words can hurt, that I think that comes through. But young children of the childcare age, 100% honest, hands down, with no guile. And it's beautiful to watch actually and be a part of.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like I think about what it must be like for a parent, you know, if to have your kids say something to someone and just be like, oh no, but there is a beauty, like, yeah, like just never mind. There is a beauty to that kind of communication, and I wonder if like that level of authenticity and curiosity as well, like, you know, like of how we ask questions can't be drawn a little bit and inspired a little bit by that element, and by, you know, like that approach of obviously being aware, because we have the ability, we have a fully formed prefrontal cortex, like we can understand things and how they might impact others, but still when we ask questions to each other in the workplace or about things in the workplace, we ask from that genuine place of curiosity rather than with all the layers of the shit that we pile over it as we go.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, you know, you're not asking somebody because you're trying to communicate some sort of subtext. You know, when you have a conversation, it would be exhausting to try and read into people's subtext constantly. So I think that's the thing, right? Is that if you approach questioning with curiosity and honesty, how can you get it wrong? And if people understand that that's who you are, then you build another layer of trust and another layer of trust, because they know that you're coming to it from a place of empathy and kindness and compassion and curiosity that's not layered with subtext. So they can then be open. You give them permission to be open and honest with you because of the way you react to it as well, and because of how you listen to it. Just with kids as well, they can be, looking for the word here, they can be quite hurtful sometimes, and I think you can use them as a teaching moment, because they see things that they don't necessarily understand or they don't see in everyday life, and that can feed into a teaching moment for them and for their parents actually. You know, I've had a couple of children say things about my size, and I'm a big girl. I know exactly who I am and what I look like, and I'm like everybody else. I have struggles and I have days where I absolutely love myself and I'm killing it and I don't care what anybody says. And then, you know, you can have a day when a 4-year-old comes up and goes, "Ew, look at you," right? And I think those are moments that you can use to say, you know what, everybody's different. Every single person, mentally, physically, spiritually, we are all completely different and completely unique. And I think that then feeds into how you learn to then communicate with people. If you recognize that not everybody's going to have the same opinion as you, and that's okay, that not everybody's going to react or respond in the same way that you do, and that is also okay. And that you learn to just take a pause and a breath, and then you explain your point of view with kindness and compassion, and not with offense and anger and all of those emotions that should be reserved for where they're appropriate.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Because it is, we put so much energy, like you said, into managing things. Whereas if we just were allowing ourselves to be like, okay, this is what it's like. And this is fine. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. And it is okay. I think if as a community, as a society, if we actually truly recognize that every single person on the planet is unique, that everybody that you come into contact with is going through something, no matter how small or how big, that if we just offered words of kindness and spoke with compassion, that the world would be a better place.
Yeah.
It would be a better place.
That's actually a great segue, because I do want to bring in your work as the Blissful Canary yoga studio owner, because I know that, so we met through yoga as well, which was such a fateful event. So we know that, like, I know that there has been quite a journey for you as far as understanding your own needs. So what is it about the way, whether it's about the way you've learned to communicate with yourself or the way that yoga has helped you to understand your own needs and then feeding that into your own well-being practice?
Yeah, it has been a journey. Not as long as you might think either, but and it changes every single day. It's yoga to me has been this amazing pathway to, let's use the catchphrase, well-being. I don't know any other way to say it, but I used to, and still am, if I'm perfectly honest about it, because it's a practice to learn to speak to yourself gently. There are still days when I am very down on myself, and I'm probably my harshest critic in everything that I do. I've always been a perfectionist, so no matter what I've done, I have very high expectations of myself. So it doesn't matter if someone's standing there saying I've done something well, I'll find something to pick at. And I've learned, particularly this last 6 months when things have been very, very challenging, that being gentle with yourself is not a weakness. Sitting with what you're feeling and with what you're thinking and actually understanding what lies underneath what you're feeling helps you move through it. It helps you communicate it to the people around you, which is incredibly beneficial when you have a day when you're crying uncontrollably, or you are just completely withdrawn, or you need space. And, you know, sometimes in the past, it's been something that I've not known how to communicate because I've always been worried about how somebody else feels about what I'm feeling rather than just feeling what I'm feeling. And I think I'm learning, well, I don't think I know, I'm learning to be more authentic with how I communicate with myself, and not from a, oh, the sky is falling, and, you know, something you and I talk about all the time is self-fulfilling prophecies, is learning to observe the emotion rather than completely embody it and then not be able to get out of it. So something I'll bring into it, and I actually didn't intend to, but I will, and it's something I'm not comfortable 100% talking about as yet, but with the death of my dad, which obviously you know about, I am now experiencing depression, and the way that I talk about that to myself and to you and to Chris, my husband, is rather than I am depression or I have depression, is that I'm experiencing it. And of course I am, because grief. And initially that was something that was incredibly difficult for me to accept and incredibly difficult for me to sit with or even admit to. And I've learned to just feel what it is that I'm feeling and sit with what I'm feeling, and whatever that happens to be in any given minute, hour, day, week, that's what it is. And I think that's allowing me to be able to be more authentic and genuine with my students, because everything that I'm telling them to do, I'm doing. Everything I'm suggesting that they do to raise their levels of energy, to move their body, to start to feel into something and to really listen to themselves and honour and have that reverence for yourself. I've learned to do that, and it's a practice. It doesn't happen every day, but I feel that I'm able to then help guide or help give suggestions to people who may be feeling the same way because I've experienced it. So I think it's a practice every single day. How we communicate, how we practice asana, how we experience and respond to others, all of it is a practice. And I think that's where everything has come from with yoga for me, and why I want to bring it to other people, because it's not about being perfect. which is something that I've always struggled with. It's not about, being the perfect Insta yogi or fitting a pose into your body. It's about how you feel and where you want to take it, not where I want to take it. Even as your teacher, it's what you need and what you want to do. And I can't do that for you unless I do that for myself. And that's been an incredibly empowering way to look at how I communicate with myself. Difficult, but empowering.
That was amazing. That's like, I'm like, yeah, that, like, all of that. It's just like, because when we have that understanding of ourselves and our own needs, and I know you know this anyway, but like of ourselves and our own needs, and when we practice communicating differently with ourselves as well, we step into self-leadership. So that's where leadership starts in itself. But also when we practice that communication with ourselves, it helps us to build empathy for others.
Yes.
We don't need to understand exactly what they're going through. We don't need to feel even what they're going through, because empathy doesn't mean taking on another person's feelings.
Yeah.
Empathy is saying, I can recognize that you are feeling some heavy shit right now.
Yes.
And I hear you.
Yep. And what do you need?
Yes.
Do you need me to bugger off? Do you need me to hold you? Do you need me to cook you a meal?
Yeah.
Not how do I fix that? Not stepping into our wonderful Brene Brown that we all love, is removing a couple of phrases from how you respond to people. And this is something that I've taken on board because I used to do it a lot. And that's saying, when somebody was trying to say or tell me what they were experiencing, I would say, at least, da-da-da-da. And that's really disempowering for people, because it kind of invalidates what they're saying to you. So rather than saying at least or but or anything like that, is just sitting back and listening. And as you say, not taking on what they're feeling, but just listening and actually being able to just paraphrase back to them how they're feeling, and then say, well, what do you need? How can I help? And it's the most beautiful thing to watch people actually blossom when you ask questions like that, rather than try and fix. You watch people do this and shut down. Yeah. But when you listen and then say, what do you need? What do you need from me? All of a sudden there's this beautiful opening and blossoming of them going, oh, thank God somebody's listened. It's a relief and a release, both.
I love that. With all of that being said, where do you, this is like the last few questions that I ask most guests, because it's such, since I talk about this self-reflection so much, I'm like, yeah, let's actually practice it in real time. But and you're very self-reflective already, but where do you feel like you do communication pretty well? And I don't mean perfectly, I just mean, where do you feel like you're pretty good at it?
I honestly think, and it's something I'm very proud of, I think I communicate with people really well empathetically. That's the feedback I get at work as well, is that when people are telling me something, it's not, let's just get on and move on or anything like that. It's, oh, you know what, that sucks. That's, you've been diagnosed with cancer. That sucks. I'm really sorry that you're going through that. How can I help? What can I do to ease your day for you? And, weirdly, we do get calls like that. Or even I'm just having a bad day, that's horrible. And I think that's something that I do really well. If I can preempt what I think you're going to ask next, what I think I don't do so well is I waffle and I don't allow space or time for someone to digest what I've said. So quite often I will say that exactly the same thing I've just said in 3 different ways to fill up the space, rather than just allowing someone to digest what I've said.
That's a really great awareness. I would definitely agree with what you do well. Like, I have been blessed, #blessed with that empathy that you, in which you hold space. Like, it's so powerful just to have that, where I don't need to show up any differently. I can just be like,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and then that's it. Like, yeah. I understand what you mean about wanting to fill the space when you're trying to hold space for someone else, like with the words and going, like saying the same thing 3 different ways. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, if you feel like that's something you can improve on, then that's great. I don't feel like that from you in my own experience, but there is a power in that pause as well. It's letting people, honoring people with their own integration.
Yes.
And processing and then integration.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, the power of the pause. Just letting people digest and let the word do a percolate, and then, you give them the opportunity to respond to you the same way that you want to respond to them.
Yeah.
They're listening for understanding. You need to give other people the opportunity to listen to understand you as well, which means you need to give them the space to do so.
Yeah, because they'll come to their own realizations and clarity as a result of all of that. So that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And lastly, where do you feel like there's room for improvement for how people communicate? I could pick an industry, but I would just say in the wider community.
Do you know, in all honesty, at the moment, I think kindness and compassion. We are living in incredibly stressful times. We've heard that constantly at the moment. We're living in unprecedented times and for our generations, yes, we are. For previous generations, no, they're not. But we just don't approach people in general most of the time with kindness and compassion. I'm going to give you an example, and it's the most beautiful thing that happened to you and I this last week gone.
Yeah.
Where we were walking down the road and we came in contact with this lovely little old gentleman, and people may question the wisdom of what we did next, but we said good morning to him and how are you? And he stopped and he was fumbling in his pocket, and we were both sort of, are you well? Are you okay? And he pulled out 2 sweets for us. Now that might be positive reinforcement for doing the right thing, and we just took candy from a stranger. But you don't see that type of thing very often anymore. And you see people's surprise and delight when you take the moment to stop and say, hey, how are you? Or good morning to somebody who's walking, and acknowledge somebody's existence because they are there in that moment. And I think for me, you see it all the time. I think I've just said that though, but you see it all the time when you are kind and compassionate to somebody, complete stranger, when you're up at the shops, when you're out doing things. If you see somebody who's sitting there and they're crying, sitting on a park bench, why wouldn't you go up to them and say, are you okay? What can I do for you? And I think just that level of human connection and kindness has been lost. And I think we need more of it. And the more we see, the more we do. I think that's the whole monkey see, monkey do. The more you see of kindness and compassion instead of the hateful, horrible things in the world that happen, the more kindness and compassion people are going to do because they're seeing it all around them. So I think that's what our community needs. They need to see it, they need to experience it, they need to feel it, and they need to do it.
Yes, I agree. And I feel like if we could somehow capture the smile on that man's face when he didn't say a word the whole time, hey?
No, he just lit up.
It was amazing.
It was this absolutely beautiful moment.
And show people this is the beautiful response that you get sometimes. And he was so gleeful and handing us the candy, and again, we took candy from a stranger.
We did. We took candy from a stranger, which we've always been told not to do. But he's of a generation where that's what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. But, and he was chuffed that somebody said good morning to him. And how simple was that? It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was beautiful. And I wish we could like bottle that
Yeah.
image somehow and just share it. I mean,
Oh,
people
God,
like,
yeah.
oh, you mean like a photo, Jess? Yes,
Yeah.
like a photo. If we'd managed to get that.
We could have done a selfie with him and be like,
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, it was so beautiful. But it was
Yeah.
like, and not a word was said. You can communicate beyond
Yes.
words as well.
Yeah.
To go out handing like candy to strangers, by the way. I don't always recommend being the person doing that either, because
Don't necessarily advocate for it in these times, but
like you can communicate through expression,
yes,
through action, and through joy
absolutely.
and glee and all of
Yes, absolutely. And people need it now more than ever, but they've always needed it. They need people to show up.
Mm.
And we can show up as humans. It's the easiest thing in the world, and I say this all the time. The easiest thing in the world is to be kind to people, and you watch people light up when you are. It's incredible.
It's amazing. Or there's such a sense of relief that they can, it's beautiful.
Because they're seen.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for joining me, Maggie. I really
My pleasure.
having this chat with you and actually recording this chat with you. Any chats like this, but getting to record it is a whole other level. So I really appreciate it. I'm excited because your yoga studio, the day that this episode comes out, is the official opening day of the Blissful Canary.
Yes.
You are in the studio. It is almost ready to go.
It is, yep.
Can you share with people how they can find you and follow your work?
Absolutely. So on the website, it's www.theblissfulcanary.com. You can do completely contactless bookings. There's do your memberships, everything online because of all things COVID. We do only have 4 spaces in studio because of COVID, but we are streaming classes as well. Instagram is _blissful_canary. Facebook, the Blissful Canary, and I would love it if people would reach out, even if you just need to have a chat, want to talk about yoga. We're here to help, and I would love to see people in classes soon.
And Maggie's a really good one to have a chat to about things as well. So I can personally recommend that. But no, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your beautiful words as always, and your beautiful energy as always. I really appreciate it. And I feel like there's so much value in this in particular because it just gets to the root of, you know what, just fucking be kind. Like, just do it. So thank you.
Thank you.